So when Pythagoras figured out this relationship, he said, well, there's got to be a way that I can find, because I can always find that hypotenuse or that longest side, I should be able to go backwards and find an unknown side length. And this is how he came up and he named his triangles. He said, well, where the right angle triangle is, I'm going to name the two sides that touch the right angle as my legs. So if you ever hear a teacher talk about the legs of a triangle versus a hypotenuse, these are our two legs. The hypotenuse is always the side that's across from the 90-degree angle. So if you imagine that this angle is pointing, that little corner is pointing, it's always pointing to the longest side, which is your hypotenuse. So he came up with this theory, Pythagorean theorem. And the formula is either hypotenuse squared equals the two side lengths squared added together, or you could write it backwards. You could say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Because for our first couple of questions, we're going to be looking for the hypotenuse, we wrote it this way, and that way our unknown's always on the left-hand side. That's the only reason we wrote it like that. So this is the Pythagorean theory. You need to know that. You need to stick that into your memory banks and keep it there for forever. So if we look at this triangle, the first thing you have to do is you have to say which side is the hypotenuse. Well, we've got to find our right angle then. If we look, our right angle happens right here, which means the side opposite it is the hypotenuse. Okay, that's side C. So now let's apply that to some questions. If we wanted to do this question where it wants us to find the length of the unknown side, the first thing we have to do is determine which side is the hypotenuse. Okay, use the right angle. It points over towards the hypotenuse side. That's how we figure it out. So we label our sides as A, B, and C, or because this question already gave you a triangle, you've got 6, 8, and C, the hypotenuse. Now, are we going to be doing an adding, or are we going to have to do a subtraction? Well, because we're looking for the hypotenuse, we are just using this equation, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. We don't have to do any subtraction. There's another question that we're going to look at that has to do some subtraction. If you're ever looking for a leg, you need to do subtraction. If you're looking for the hypotenuse, you have to just use the normal addition. Then, once you figure out what we're supposed to be doing, we just plug in our known values into our equation. Well, the Pythagorean theory, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. We're looking for our hypotenuse, so it's going to stay as a letter, but we can replace the a and b. We can replace the legs with these numbers that we've seen or that are given to us in the question. So that's 8 squared and 6 squared. When we do that math on a calculator, 8 times 8 gives us 64, 6 times 6 gives us 36. We add those two sides together, and then we have to get C by itself. The C is being squared, so we have to undo the squared. The way you undo a squared is with a square root. Okay, so make sure you look over your calculator and how to do a square root. Most of us need to use the shift or the second function button to get the square root to work. And then we've just got an answer of 10. 10 units. In this case, yeah, it's just 10 units. I'll add that in there, units. That is the hypotenuse of this unknown side.